Welcome to Her Path, the podcast for busy women looking for purpose, health, and happiness. Today, we are talking about loneliness and isolation. This topic is near and dear to my heart as part of the work that I do and the clients that I coach. I have seen so many women who have stated they've lost their community, they're lonely, they feel isolated. A lot of this is post-pandemic. A lot of this happens when you change phases of life, going from, having kids in school and all the school activities to being an empty nester to being retired or thinking about retired. One of the things that I think is so interesting about this topic is that it's not just what we are seeing with our clients and with our patients, but also what we're seeing on a national level. Our U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, he did a whole advisory paper on and called it an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And he said that has been affecting our country and has laid out a national strategy to advance social connections. When that came out, that was mind-blowing to me, that that he called it an epidemic and he created a national strategy to address it. So when I think about loneliness and isolation, especially for women and women who are in the workforce, women who are raising children, women who are juggling so much and trying to be everything to everyone, what's the first thing that goes? Ourselves and our self-care. And what's part of self-care is those connections, friendships, community. Think about the workplace and the movement towards more remote work. There aren't those, the water cooler conversations or stopping by someone's desk or colleagues going out to lunch together because so many people are working remotely now. So many social engagements fell apart during the pandemic, whether it was book clubs or, philanthropy groups. It went to meeting virtually, and that gets the job done, but it doesn't make those personal connections. So today I want us to really focus on what our experiences have been with loneliness and isolation, with what we've seen with our clients, how we address it, how we fight this epidemic that has kind of popped up in the last couple of years, and really give you, our listeners, some tools to help with loneliness and isolation. So I want to turn it over to my co-host here to get your thoughts.
I feel like for me, since right now I'm at that age where I'm in the thick of things, I have a house full. Actually, one of my kiddos just this week, she moved into her college dorms. Now, granted, it's only 30 minutes away, so it's not that far, but it's a big moment in having one of your kids move out of the house for the first time. I have 3 more, so the house is still pretty dang full with the other kids, the husband, the dog, the chickens, the birds. So it's pretty busy. So I'm in that time when there's just so much stuff happening. But now seeing one fly the coop, talking with my husband, it's like, a lot of our focus has been paying a lot of attention to the kids. But when they are out of our house, what do we do? All of our activities, all of our time, all of our social life kind of revolves around them, their schedules, and my husband and I, our relationship has kind of taken a back burner. So kind of getting reconnected, finding small ways to rekindle our relationship is important, because realizing one day, hopefully it'll just be, me and him. How are we going to navigate that? Are we still going to even like each other when that point happens? Am I going to want to hang out with you? Are you going to want to hang out with me? Are you still going to like me at that point? And being a little bit proactive in that has been one thing. And then the other thing is, I noticed it is more challenging as you get older to make new friends. It's easy to make acquaintances. I feel like that part is not challenging whatsoever. And sometimes you have to kind of cut off new acquaintances because it takes up a lot of time. But those friends that you feel that you can connect, you can be yourself with, it does get challenging over time. And so that's something that I feel like women my age, mid to late 40s, have struggled with, is making good, deep connections with other women that feel like you have things in common with. And so that's something that I have to work on for myself also, as my life changes and the focus of all of my time isn't my children anymore. I do notice a big void and a big gap in that.
Mm.
And I feel like that's common with a lot of women who are, middle-aged, older children, kind of struggle. I mean, you have your college girlfriends, your maybe some coworkers, acquaintances, but some of those deeper connections can be lacking for a lot of us.
I think I'm on the opposite end. All my kids are done. They're people now. They've moved out. My youngest, who just left maybe a year ago, she took the dog and the cat. So I have nothing. I have nobody. It is just me. And I really, I knew about 4 months before she was going to leave. And I thought to myself, okay, I need to prepare myself because I'm going to be alone. And I love it. I have not been lonely 1 minute, and I'm not sure why, but I've been enjoying it, loving it. I can come and go whenever I want. I can do whatever I want. I can sit, I can not do anything. I can do a ton of things. It's like my life now. Whatever I want to do, I can do. And I do volunteer at Gilda's Club. And I do have my office I go to a couple days a week, and I have started I do some in-home care for a lady down the road. So my life is full, I feel. But it's what I want to do. So I'm not lonely in the least, because I think for me I've learned to finally become my own best friend, which has been fabulous. So it's helped me learn to know myself deeper, and I really like my own company.
I
So
really feel like something that makes a big difference, and I hear that coming from the things that you're saying, is like having a purpose.
Yeah.
And in regards to all of those aspects, when it becomes to like being your own best friend, or people that you still want to be there for, to support, in your community, a big wider volunteering, for something that you care about.
Yeah.
I think having that purpose, even when you are, let's say, alone, is really helps fill up your cup, I guess, if I could say it that way, and doesn't leave a whole lot of room for feeling lonely or isolated.
Right.
So I think those are very different things, loneliness and isolation.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I've enjoyed it. I totally love being alone.
When I do have alone time, I do love it a lot. Like I really do love just, having that quietness to myself. That's when I actually have opportunity to actually think about things that, I haven't been thinking about, even do things for myself that I haven't been able to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's resting that I haven't been able to do, or tasks that I want to do, or, catch up on things that I've fallen behind on, or catch up with people that I haven't been able to catch up with, either through phone calls or, reaching out through social media or what have you. Yeah, I don't really mind alone time.
No.
I really do enjoy it when I get it.
Do you see clients and patients, though, that have a sense of being isolated and don't have that
Yeah.
community,
All the time. Yeah. The people that I deal with who express feelings of loneliness or isolation, they have more problems with feeling depression, feeling really hopeless, feeling sad, low energy, low motivation, worsening memory, worsening focus, worsening concentration, challenging with taking care of themselves, struggling with when they do have a urgent need, whether it's medical or emotional, not having support to help with, simple things. And it may even be things like, and of course, I'm talking on the extreme end, right? People who are sick, older, not a lot of resources. But if you add on top of that isolation or loneliness, that really affects their health, their well-being, like to an exponential degree.
Yeah. I think they can kind of stop taking care of themselves.
Oh,
like
totally.
let it go. Yeah, for sure. But I think volunteering is really, really good because you have to be outside of yourself. You don't focus on yourself, you're giving back. And I think the secret to living is giving.
Right.
So I think that's been a good suggestion I've given to people who said they were lonely.
I agree with that. I've had the fortune of never feeling lonely. I've always had, good friends, good confidants, social circles, but there is something different about getting involved in philanthropies, in volunteering, whether you're volunteering as you do, Nancy, to help an individual, or join in a cause that you care about. That's the route that I took, and I'm on a couple of boards, and I'm active in a couple of kind of philanthropy nonprofits. And I've met the most wonderful people. So not only does it fill your cup, because what did you say, Nancy? Living is giving.
The secret to living is giving.
Yes, yes. But not only are you giving to something that you feel really passionate about, but you're meeting like-minded individuals. And for me, it's been circles of women. So I'm, involved in the Girl Scouts. I'm involved in the United Way. In the Chamber of Commerce, and I've met just the most amazing women that inspire me and lift me up. And you find these new communities that you would not have had in any other circumstance, and that's what I find, particularly, rewarding.
Yeah, but you have to put yourself out there, and
Yes.
that can be a hurdle for a lot of
Yes. So that moves us into the next, part that I wanted to talk about was how would you create these connections? So great segue, Nancy.
Right, because I sometimes have run into it where, and this has happened to me before too, where you can be surrounded by people all the time or a lot and still have a sense of loneliness sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, that can happen when there is not a feeling of connection, or there is not a sense of worthiness or deserving or feeling being accepted or being a part of. And I think for a lot of, professional women, that can happen, especially if we carry really heavily a big imposter syndrome bag with us all the time, like not feeling like we're good enough, not feeling like we're smart enough, not feeling like, we can keep up with everyone else seems to be having such much more success, to be much more able to be able to balance all the things. Everyone else seems perfect. And having that kind of perception, even though we may be surrounded by all the people, can still lead to a sense of loneliness. So I think we can take it literally, and we can also experience loneliness internally.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah. So as we move into what those keys are to combating loneliness and isolation, for me, it is starting with a mindset.
Mhm.
I'm going to treat my connections as people, right? Not as colleagues, not as staff, not as, just another person in the room, and be purposeful about creating that personal connection, right? That's really key. And I think it was, Nancy, you said, reach out, right? You have to take that action. Everybody gets busy. We need to make time to touch base and make that difference. Kindness, I think kindness is key. Showing that, just that act of showing empathy, showing encouragement, showing support will make those connections stronger. And it will also lift up you. I mean, there is research out there that doing those acts of kindness has serotonin release, right? And will help you with that depression and isolation feeling.
Yeah. And generally caring about someone,
Yes. Yeah.
making eye contact and just,
Yeah.
really, really caring.
Really caring. Yeah. Kindness and caring and just showing that, right? Unabashed.
Mhm.
Keeping judgments to a minimum. So I love this one. So I learned from an expert in leadership that we are all naturally born judgers, right? And we spend our whole life working on being more curious and less judgy. But when it comes to making connections, keeping that judgment out of the space can make all the difference in the world. Keeping that sense of curiosity, that sense of wonder. Tell me about yourself. That's it. You do something that I've never even heard of before, or I haven't met anybody like you before. Tell me more. That sense of curiosity can make that making those connections easier. I will say, in today's climate, in our environment, being curious is harder than it's ever been, right? There's a lot of judgment going on around there in politics and in our society. So this is a hard one.
Great.
And then the last one that I would offer up is to be vulnerable. When you can be vulnerable with people, that's when the real conversations, the real connections, the real friendships start, by allowing yourself to be vulnerable and talking about those things that really matter that we don't often talk about. What other ways to combat loneliness and isolation have you both used?
I feel like applying some of those principles to myself. I feel for a long time, like I felt disconnected to a lot of women who had achieved the same things that I have had achieved, but somehow I felt that I wasn't worthy or as capable as, some of these other people, even though I was at the same point of life. And even though I may have had to even work harder or overcome so many more obstacles to reach that same point. And so I think for me, really accepting and being all those things that you said, non-judgmental, compassionate, curious, still be kind of, excited about myself has helped me combat some of that loneliness and be able to form stronger relationships with others because I can be more secure with who I am. And as a result, allow myself to be vulnerable, allow myself to be more authentic with other people. So I think for me, strengthening the relationship with myself has helped me strengthen relationship with others. And then at the same time, it's also helped me enjoy my own company even more without feeling lonely when I'm alone or when I'm not surrounded by people. I'm not seeking that reassurance. I'm not seeking, praise. I'm not seeking external validation for existing. So strengthening that relationship with myself has really helped combat that sense of loneliness.
I love how you talk about that imposter syndrome. And I know we've talked about that before. We talk about it all the time, but tackling that first and building up your self-confidence is probably the very first step, right? Learning to
Right.
uh, be your own best friend. I think that's what Nancy put it, or just enjoy your own company, or get rid of that imposter. You had every right to, you worked hard, you deserve to be where you are. All of those things play into the foundation of combating loneliness and isolation. I think that's such a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a natural introvert, so I have to force myself to go out. But like going to the coach training where I met you guys, I mean that's a good example that I think about all the time. I'm like, I wouldn't have these amazing women friends if I hadn't like pushed myself to go out. Done that. And then actually I've met a couple really nice women on the Facebook. There's a friendship site, there's a dating site and a friendship site.
Oh,
So I found a couple good friends
goodness.
on Facebook friendships. And then
Nice.
there's all kinds of events, local events,
Mhm.
you just have to push yourself to go.
I
Yeah.
was having a conversation with someone about when you really let your walls down and allow yourself to be vulnerable and allow yourself to be open, that it's kind of hard not to make connections. It
Mhm.
seems like, just people get drawn to you, and almost like you have to, kind of shut things down sometimes because it's too much. There's also, you can have too many acquaintances and too many friends where you can't really have quality. And so I know there have been times when I've been like, oh my gosh, I have to chill out. I can't, I've been having to say no more than a lot more because with social media and with so many opportunities to actually socialize, sometimes it's harder not to be social than it is to be social. I don't know if you've all experienced that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I have.
on purpose. Say, no, I can't. No, I can't. I can't go out with you. I know I won't be meeting you. I won't be joining this group. No, I won't be attending these meetings.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
it's also
noticed
too much.
that, especially when I started my own business, and networking is such a huge part of building your business and making those connections and getting clients. And I found myself out almost every night of the week, either networking with like the International Coaching Federation, or my all of my philanthropies, plus the networking, plus oh, I haven't talked to this person, let's go have dinner, right? And I had to do the same thing. I had to say, this is too much.
Mhm.
I'm going to pick and be really purposeful and careful about what I commit to in the evenings, what I commit to in terms of being away from my family and not being at the dinner table and being out, because that does take so much energy. When you're networking and you're out, you're on, right? So balancing that with self-care is hard, I think.
Right.
Especially if you're extroverted. I think extroverts, and I'm actually an introvert. I need to go home and I need to soak in the tub, and that's where my energy gets regenerated, right?
Right.
Or I need to, be reading a book and re-energize myself. But it's easy for me to get caught up in I'll go to this and I'll go to this and I'll go to this. What about you, Nancy? Because you said you're very introverted.
I am. Yeah, I have to sit on the battery charger at home for sure. But no, I have to force myself to go out. I kind of enjoyed COVID in a way. I, I know it
Me
sounds,
too. I did too.
I can say it, I enjoyed it, but
The isolation part. Mhm.
yeah, it was like permission not to do a darn thing. I
Right.
thought it was lovely. But I saw isolation loneliness in my parents, which was really hard. That for me was like the perfect example of loneliness was, and so I made it a point, and I did a lot. I ran to my dad's like twice a week, and then I had my mom living with me, so it was like a lot of back and forth. But yeah, I was just really trying to help him and just to be there for him, and It was hard to see, but I could tell he was really lonely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other pearls of wisdom that you have from your professional world or your personal experiences?
I think isolation is something that can definitely be very detrimental, and the isolation comes not only from literally physically not interacting whatsoever with anyone, whether it's physically or interacting through any kind of means, but also isolating yourself from you,
Mhm.
where you get disconnected from yourself to the point where you don't feel like you have any purpose, or you don't feel like you can enjoy your own company, your own thoughts, your own environment. I think getting to that point is can be pretty devastating. I think loneliness can be a degree, and not necessarily a bad thing to have spurts of that periodically. I think that's pretty easily combatable with getting in tune of what is it exactly that is making you feel lonely? Because you can be alone and not feel lonely whatsoever and still feel amazing and be enjoying your company. So I think getting really in touch with what exactly is it that you need or you want in that moment that you're feeling that loneliness is important to tune into.
Yeah.
What is it that you're missing? What is it that you're seeking? What is it that is contributing to that feeling of loneliness?
Yeah. What's caused the hole, right? And how
Yeah, where's the hole?
yeah.
And what do
Yeah.
you need?
What do you need?
But if you don't know, then that feeling of loneliness can persist a lot longer if you're not curious with yourself or inquisitive with yourself to figure out what is it that's making me feel lonely.
And not only can it persist, but it can grow, it can multiply. Because if
Mhm.
you're not tackling the root cause of why you're lonely, again, our minds are assholes, right? And our minds will perpetuate it for us. So it's so important to keep in touch with, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking this? What are the
Right.
facts, right?
Yeah, and if it is human connection, you can intentionally work on making those connections.
Right.
And I think, I think what keeps us from doing that is the fear of rejection,
Mhm.
or that imposter syndrome that we keep talking about that is so, prevalent across, busy professional women. But you can be intentional, and sometimes you may come off as needy and creepy and desperate, but who cares? You'll find your other needy and desperate and creepy friend that you may really hit it off with and start a podcast with.
That's right.
Start a club.
And make a club with.
There you go. Even the creepies need friends. Right? Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, ladies, for just sharing your experiences and your lessons. And for our listeners, we hope that this has been eye-opening and gives you something to think about. We've given you some strategies to help you if you are feeling lonely and you are feeling isolated, to get back out there and make those connections. So if you liked this podcast, please share it. Please follow us. We would love that. And we hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.